Believe it or not, ever since the times of the POV, point of view, or first person, subjective camera, shot was present in the film industry. It was source of greatest tension, sexual desire, melancholy, chase of memories, emotionality, or greed. According to some researchers, 40% of the Hollywood productions in the 30s were using this form of expression. We don't know how did they come to the idea for this, since the prevailing discourse is that the aesthetical innovations which occurred in the first wave of emigration in Hollywood were originating from the fact that these filmmakers, as well as entrepreneurs, the owners of the first studios, were all running away from some form of repression, dictatorship, or censorship. As a reaction of this, they were pushing for stronger expression and illumination of the prevailing discourse that everything should be available. In a sense, everyone's thoughts and everything should be open-minded, triggering the ever-present question of the freedom of expression. In my paper proposal, I named two filmmakers, Ruben Mamoulian and Robert Montgomery. The first one is indeed from the Soviet Union, however, the second one is very American, not only a filmmaker but also a successful politician. I chose these two not only for the aesthetical reasoning, but also for their cultural background, and as we saw many times throughout the history of cinema, what was good in one aesthetical solution with one intention can become most successful with another. Mostly used example for this is the editing technique of attraction invented by the Russian communist Dziga Verdov for the purpose of creating propaganda for the proletariat, who became most prolific in the film and TV commercials. The idea of associating the most innovative solutions with the mainstream audiences is very old, as it is believed that innovations always attract great audiences, which was not firstly the case with the 3D technique, of course. Many of the findings of the Lev Kuleshev's ideas for the POV camera were evidently brought to USA by the director Mamoulian. This experiment shows same reaction of the face of the actor but edited with 3 different shots 3 times, so the audience believed the actor acted in 3 different situations. The truth was the actor was all of the time the same, as it was the situation with the whole country of the Soviet Union. However, the director Ruben Mamoulian evidently accepted the culture of the New World, which was very much for the technical and aesthetical innovations if we focus on the film industry. This coincides inversely with the philosophical interpretations of Zadek, who somewhat criticizes the techno-evolution by claiming they have technology. In a sense, the Westerners tend to transform people into machines. However, John Dewey undoubtedly defines that the democracy depends on the development of the technology. In this line, we can examine the usage of the POV camera in the case of Dr. Jakyll and Mr. Hyde as an example of self-expression of the character and the will of his self to prevail. The subjective camera movement, when used in this movie, by its sharp, decisive fastness and by appearance of the actor's reflection in the mirror, we can assume his self is full with greed, self-indulging, boyish curiosity, and endless pretension. In his character, we can find traces of the bureaucratic dictatorship by the director-left environment of the Soviet Union. Why I think this research of mine is accurate and necessary? Because nowadays, when estimating by the development of the new technologies, we can allocate the usage of the covering data, which covers the real, the truthful information. This old cinematic masterpiece reveals this situation So we can see how the twisted personality can outplay the reality by hiding in different body and subject. Is there an alter ego at all, or the ego is just gaining more power with, in this case, the social potion, the spatial potion? Nowadays, we can witness this power being obtained with the help of the bots in the social media. So I want to say, what was once this special potion, it's now are the bots in the social media. The sexuality of the monster, amongst other, is also revealed through its violent needs, for which the solid matrimonial relation is not enough. No wonder the director of this innovative production is someone from the East, since there we can find the drastic, historically rudimental atavisms of the dictatorships preserved as ultimate forms of patriotism. Whoever seeks for democracy within this kind of the Eastern culturing could not possibly find it in the Eastern European patriots. In the time of the golden years of Hollywood, all Democrats, all seekers for civil liberties were running away from the East. That is why the civil libido has to be radically relieved in the presence of the prostitute epitomized in the image of corrupted Europe in the eve of the World War II. The lady in the lake from the other side is from the very mainstream star Robert Montgomery, and is a very innovative production in many ways, not just by the usage of the fully POV aesthetics, but as well for one of the first creations of a double chase detective story, the choral music, the picturesque Christmas setting in the genre of detective story, etc. This is to say that mainstream commercial hit productions can also be source of big innovation, inspiration and development of the film form. In this case, unlike in the previous one, the self is used for the expression of the Puritan conservative side of the modern existing, when the tentacles of the corruption are putting their dark stain on the lives of the characters, in this case the somewhat perfect romantic duo. Lacan's self or ego or I identity is also on some level a fantasy, an identification with an external image and not an internal sense of separate whole identity. This is why Lacan calls the phase of demanded and mirror stage the realm of imaginariness, by Claix. In Lacanian terms, identification can be described as an example of capitation, a process in which an object in the external world, which is mostly frequently another person, captivates the subject so much that it becomes a component in that subject's self-image. In this case, the self is the male and the mirror. The external world is the female counterpart. With Hegel, we got the idea that the self is built and is this through our relations with others. But that leaves the unclear question of who it is. Lacan followed Freud in claiming that the Cartesian picture of self is misleading because it neglects the unconscious. For both Lacan and Freud, the self is something that we build, largely injecting material dished on us by other people. Our self is an imaginative creation. The self in Lady in the Lake is being built very consciously, although consciously by the both characters. The Christmas atmosphere and the enlightened cinematography are reflecting the warmth in the society that protects the family by its constitution. In 1952, the director and actor Robert Montgomery gained popularity when he began working as television coach for the US President Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was very conservative, perhaps something like Schwarzenegger now, also being one of the first presidents of the Screen Actors Guild, something like Ronald Reagan. In the case of The Lady in the Lake, the repressed libido, as described by Christian Metz, is also offered to the audience, but by the two scared partners. So what was presented in this film was also very present in the golden years of Hollywood, even in the pre-code period. The partnership of the POV camera and the expression of the self through it possibly continued and was developed by some of the greatest authors of the mainstream cinema, motivationally perhaps for demonstrating its presence, as the self is mostly present in the American culture, unlike the prevailing repressions everywhere else. Perhaps this is the most authentic American cinematic form of expression. This was developed by exemplum gratia by Hitchcock in almost all of his films. Steven Spielberg went a step further by replacing the following, the second shot, by the expression of the actor's face. Hitchcock didn't want to meet with Spielberg because he gave the rights of Jaws to the studios, but Spielberg did a magnificent job placing the POV shots in Jaws in the place of the shark, by opposing the self of the feeding shark to humans who are always in need of something, although they always have some food. At least in this movie, the self of people is not as that of an animal. Lately, the self is very much present in the mainstream 3D or not productions, especially in the comics screen adaptations. We can recognize the above-mentioned discourse between the self in repression and the self endangered from being conservative, as an output of the comparison between the mammalians and Montgomery's talkies. These two productions also define the position of the self as super ego, or as a heroic one, as the first one is before and the second one after the World War II. However, the self in the first case is an irresponsible one, which cannot be said for the second film mentioned here, since the first one is irresponsible European-like director, unlike the second self, which believes there should be law responsibility for every action. However, both productions do define self should be responsible for those actions, regardless if they are villains or victims. Since there is difference in the normative historic and contemporary war. In the historical norm, based on the classics like Cicero, St. Augustine, Thucydides, etc., with methods that are comparative and descriptive, especially those in the Old Testament, unlike the contemporary norm, which is compilation of war ethics and applied educational ethics. Thank you for all your attention.